Testosterone, we have a problem.
This is Outside the Manosphere, where two guys with zero credentials dive past the cliches of masculinity and try and become better friends by actually talking to each other. It's weirdly hard, but we're doing it anyway. Join us.
Hi, and welcome to Outside the Manosphere with Skip and Carlos. My name is Carlos.
My name is Skip.
Skip, what's going on? How's your week been?
So far, so good. It is so nice outside. I almost didn't want to do this, but I'm very happy to be talking to you. But after
What's
this,
it?
I'm probably going to go to the beer garden.
It's about, what, 2 o'clock, 2:30 there?
Yeah, 2:30. Yeah.
That's like prime day right there. Yeah, it's been a
It's
couple of really nice
beautiful.
days here as well. Yeah, same. Really, really nice. So much so that we have our evening routine where we will watch a show or two that we're addicted to, and at the expense of being outside. And it's I'm conflicted about it, but we got our shows.
Yeah. Well, we live, as you know, we moved up the street from where we were before, but you remember we're right across the street from that big park, Rigo Visati,
Oh yeah.
and there's the beer garden and stuff. It's just there's no excuse to stay inside, and just walking home from the tram, it's like I'd like to stay outside. Yeah. So hopefully get out after this. But then we've
Yeah.
got maybe Dungeons and Dragons tonight, which is very exciting and nerdy.
What do you mean? Like you're gonna play the game, or or what? A movie?
Yeah, we have a friend that comes over some Tuesday nights when he's not sick or something, and he dungeon masters DMs for our family, and we play Dungeons and Dragons adventures together because we're very, very cool.
I have to say, I am experiencing a pang of envy right now because I only ever played Dungeons and Dragons a couple of times as a kid, but I yearned for it, and I just didn't have
Mm.
enough people or just the right people around that wanted to play or knew how to play. But I always had so much fun when I would play that game, and yeah, it's nice that you've got your people there to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. And we got me and Jess had never played before, but my older son was interested, and so we conned this other friend into DMing because he DMs for a couple groups and he really enjoys it. So yeah, so now we go on adventures and we take on weird personas, and it's a pretty good time.
And Jess plays too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's so much fun.
Jess is always sort of Jess. I take on wild personas, and she's always kind of like the law and order, this is the right thing to do person. So she's vowed that in her next character, she's going to completely do something else, and we'll see. We'll see if she's able to. She's such a rule follower.
Step outside of her fantasy
Yeah.
comfort zone.
Yep. So
Oh,
what's up
nice.
with you? Anything new?
New going on. Yeah, I've got a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of stress this week. Having a series of interviews for a paramedic job. That's what I studied for the past year and a half to be a
Yeah.
paramedic out here. Yeah, it's coming up. I got a driving test tomorrow, and then I have to do a clinical scenario where I have to basically pretend to be treating a patient, and I got to diagnose them, and I've got to give them the right medications and ask them the right questions and all that stuff. And I did it. Yeah, I should be working right now, but I
Sorry.
totally shit the bed. I totally shit the bed in January, and they didn't hire me. I mean, I have, in my mind at least, a very good reason for it. Very quickly, just so everyone knows, I graduated maybe second in my class, or maybe third, something like that. But I was very high. I had excellent grades. I did great, and even in my preceptorship, where I'm actually on the ambulance and working with real patients, I did great. But when it came time for the actual hiring, the night before, and there's a series of just stars aligning that did this. The night before, and I'll tell you off mic, I can't admit to it on record. But the night before my interviews, and it was an interview. I had to take an exam. I had to take the clinical assessment that I just described, a driving exam, and then a verbal interview with a couple of like a panel. So it's intensive, and I did great on everything except for the clinical thing. I just screwed up. And but anyway, the night before I was supposed to do the clinical exam, I was faced with a moral dilemma. And it's one of those things. I don't know if I had mentioned it to you before, but I've been kind of describing it to myself as like the runaway trolley scenario, where you have a trolley where you can hit
Yeah,
one
yeah,
person,
yeah.
or if you pull a trolley's going to hit 5 people, or you pull the lever and you can save 5 people and kill one person.
Right.
And I was kind of faced with a dilemma like that, and I made a choice, and I have been distracted by it ever since. And this was just like hours before my clinical assessment. So I was just really messed up. And I made
Yeah,
really dumb
yeah,
mistakes and really obvious. Like I knew everything that I did wrong. It was just in the moment. I was just a
yeah,
basket case. So anyway,
sure.
hopefully this week it'll be different. But yeah, that's what's happening with me.
Well, I have every confidence in you. Is
Wow,
is
appreciate it.
there any part of this, because you mentioned a lot of things, like there's driving in a clinical and an interview. Are there any parts that you feel more or less comfortable or have any particular feelings about going into it?
I feel comfortable with all of it, with the exception of the written exam, because it's been like 6 months at this point since I mean, I study every day just to keep fresh, but it's been about 6 months since I've actually been in the field and in the classroom. So like it's a lot of, information to keep in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
brain,
yeah.
and they're going to test me on that. So that's one thing. And then the other is just the performance, the nerves of the performance. You got 4 or 5 people watching you, asking you questions, and it's a serious thing because you can kill somebody if you don't know what you're doing. No matter how charming or likable you are, you're not going to get hired if you screw
Right,
up.
right.
As I learned in January.
Yeah, it's funny how you can be in like these kind of life or death situations and be less nervous than about the interview part where people are watching you.
You know what? That's exactly what it is. I'm more nervous about the interview process than ever was. Like I dealt with death when I was in the preceptorship portion. Where I was actually putting IVs in real people and like
Yeah.
diagnosing them. That didn't really make me nervous at all. I handled it very well. The worst part of that was I kept getting car sick because I was riding backwards in an ambulance and I puked more than once, and that was embarrassing. But that was it. Everything else was fine. But the clinical portion where I'm being
Yeah.
judged, oof, yeah, it's stressful.
You don't have time in the real scenario. You're there, you're in it, as opposed to when you're just being judged.
Well, and on top of that, you have a perfectly capable partner with you in a real life situation. They're going to say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! You don't do that." Or, "What do you think about this?" You can bounce your thoughts off. Not always,
Right.
because it can be an emergency situation. But yeah, it's a different sort of setup. And you have to. I had a hard time. I still have a hard time pretending, because
Mhm.
the idea is you take this patient, but it's not a real patient. It's another
Right.
paramedic pretending to be one, and it's hard for me to make believe. You know what I mean? That's just not something that I
Right.
had the mind for. I will say very quickly though about what's happened this week. Just a couple of days ago, I was at the grocery store and I saw a man that I recognized, and he had a couple of kids with him, and like a baby and then like a toddler, and I recognized him. And I was like, was this from like my farming days? Is this someone that I sold stuff to? And then I saw a woman that I recognized, and they kind of seemed together, but they didn't seem together. And I was just like looking at them, trying not to look at them, you know what I mean? Because I didn't want them to
Mhm.
recognize me, and I didn't recognize them, and the whole embarrassing situation. But I had completely pegged the man as somebody else that I was like, but that's not his wife. I was like, maybe they're not together anymore, but they got these 2 small kids. Like, oh, it's too bad. And when I left, I saw him again in the parking lot, and he came to me. This was a couple that, for my training, you have to spend some time in the hospital, and one of them was
Mhm.
in nursing or obstetrics rather. And I was in the room when that baby was being born, and it was a really, really, really weird, invasive, horrific, and sweet moment for me, because I was like, wow, I hope they didn't recognize me right away, and I'm staring at them, and they, you know what I mean, that I was in
Yeah.
the same room with them when their baby was being born. But it was really neat to see the kid, because I hadn't seen the baby. I guess it was a girl in like I don't know, since she was born, and she had a full head of hair and looked healthy, and it was neat. It was a really neat little moment for me.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So that's a lot of me talking. Anything else with your week?
No, no, there's nothing going on. Yeah, the most exciting thing that I have is that I looked up Ogopogo after last time, and yeah, it wasn't at all what I had pictured. The statue, I didn't picture color. I didn't picture it being painted. I had kind of pictured something else, and it's very cartoon-like and fun. And I was like, oh, okay. I was just checking to see if it was a palindrome because
Yeah.
as I said, that gives me great joy. Which reminds me, I just want to thank you because you are our editor. You put together the sound and put hours into this every week. And I was able to listen to it like I listen to all my podcasts at double speed, which was very nice for me. You listen to podcasts, but when I listen to them at normal speed, it's just like kind of strange torture. I can't do it.
I have listened to double speed before, and or like 1.5 speed or whatever, but I
Hmm.
prefer it just in real time, because my mind wanders, and if they're talking so fast, then my mind's gonna wander. I'll miss even greater chunks than I would have otherwise.
Oh, that's the exact opposite experience that I've just likes it at 1.5. I like it at 2. And I was forced because it wasn't on my podcast app. I was listening to something the other day and it was flash fiction. So it's under like 1,000 words and it was
Mhm.
8 minutes long and I was dying. My mind, like, in between words, I was getting distracted because I've got ADHD and just like I couldn't pay attention. So it's kind of the opposite problem. If it's going fast, you miss a lot. If it's going slow, I miss all of it. I'm
Right.
gone.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, this thing's still on. And I was thinking about, fish in the deep ocean.
Though I'm the same way, and Jody always says that I have ADHD. She's got ADHD, but she's always saying that I have it as well. And of course, I think everyone does to a degree. But yeah, my mind will wander, and it'll wander whether it's going slow or whether it's going fast. And I just meditation really helps with that. And you just have to kind of catch it and then like just bring it right back in. There's some little tricks when you start learning how to meditate that helps.
Yeah. I'm not meditating, but I don't know, maybe it is sort of meditating. I've been trying to manifest because you've influenced
Yeah,
me with some of your woo-woo stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And so like every day I'll do these kind of deep breaths and I don't know how to manifest, so I'm just making it up as I go. And I'll breathe in like little money symbols, like dollar symbols
Okay.
and euros and Czech crowns, and I'll breathe out and when I'm breathing out I'm envisioning like spiders and bats flying out of my mouth
Yeah.
and stuff,
Okay.
green milk. But every single day since I've done it, we've had some minor windfall. We got here you pay for your gas and your electricity in
Right.
advance, and we got our projected advances for the next year, and our bills all went down
Nice.
in 2 days in a row. So like little things like that
Yeah.
that it's just like, oh, I just bought myself lunch once a month. So yeah, we're and now Jess is very much like me. Neither one of us is woo woo, but the other day I was like laying in bed doing my manifesting, and my son came in and started crawling on me. She's like, leave him alone, he's doing something.
He's working on the family.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm taking little elements of this into
You
my
know what?
life.
So I know we can do. I know when we get to our outro, you had an idea of something, but we can come back to that as well. I'll give you some pointers
Okay.
as well for manifestation slash affirmations because to me it's the same bag. But what you described, keep doing that, man. That's whatever is working, whatever speaks to you. That's what you got to do because there's no right way really.
Yeah, well, and I've been accused of manifesting things before. Things happen that kind of go towards these long held desires that I've pushed for. But I've always kind of been like, well, no, hold on, because I'm not woo woo. Like I've put my mind to this. It's not just me putting things out into the universe. Like I actively have been steering this ship. But like there's a couple things here that have come in that it's just like, no, well, that's beyond my control. That's fair. Like
Yeah.
some things have been manifesting.
Since we're on the subject, I know this is really the
Yeah.
intro. We're going to get to the meat of everything, but that's kind of what I was getting at before when we talked about affirmations and everything. You can look at it in two ways. You can look at it as like, oh, I'm putting it out into the universe, and therefore it'll come back to me. That's one way of looking at it.
Hmm.
And this is how I started doing it. Now I'm more of like, yeah, I'm putting it out in the universe, but it's more of a hybrid. So you can look at it exactly as you just described. By saying it repeatedly over and over again, by constantly having your mind around it, you are problem solving and how to
Hmm.
get it to you. You know what I mean? An example would be being accepted to the paramedic college that I was accepted to, getting Canadian citizenship, a whole lot of things actually that I think it would be
Yeah.
vulgar for me to describe because it's been so beneficial for me and that
A
I can tell
tumult
you
of good fortune.
absolutely good fortune. And it's all stuff that I would be like repeating on affirmation, like prayer. Really, that's the
Hmm.
best way I can describe it. And in doing so, I'm not just saying, "Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this." I'm envisioning how I'm going to do it and how I'm getting it and like the steps I
Yeah.
need to take and then like the end result and the me holding, the trophy whatever over my head afterward because I've got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your mind is all around it and therefore you make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like going to college, I didn't just say, "Oh, I am going to manifest this to happen," and then sat down
Hmm.
and started playing Nintendo or whatever, and then I got it. No, I had to apply, I had to
Yeah.
pay,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But I did all that myself. I did the application for my citizenship myself. I did all that stuff myself. But How on the ball would I have been without constantly thinking about it? I don't know. Maybe not as I might not have been as motivated. And I would wake up thinking about these things. I'd go to bed
Hmm.
thinking about these things, all because I was doing
Yeah.
the affirmations and the manifestation, sort of exercises.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
that's how I kind of think of it more scientifically and
Uh,
de-woo-woofy it for myself is by constantly like putting yourself on this track of thought,
uh,
you're making 1,000 small little decisions that help
right.
you guide you in that direction that you might not. And sometimes those things happen and it feels like you've done nothing, but you've been doing things the
Yeah.
whole time. Sometimes some of the things that happened this week, I genuinely didn't do anything. But I also might not have noticed them or enjoyed them as much if I hadn't been focusing on this. So, there's kind of like there's some lovely ways that it works out.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, I've been really enjoying manifesting.
Hey, I'd never thought I'd hear that come out of your mouth. Well, that's good. That's good because it's a really positive thing. I know that in Saturday Night Live, Al Franken's character Stuart Smalley, he'd sit in front of the
Yeah.
mirror and say, "What is it? What would he say? Do you remember what
I'm
he would
good
say?"
enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the first thing I thought of when you said
yeah,
affirmations.
yeah. And the character was so laughable because he had like little curly Q hair. He had
Hmm.
thick glasses. He wore like a sweater vest, and and
Yeah.
and he just looked
All
so
pastels. Yeah.
yeah, he just looked so silly. But man, that was a character, or that was a thought process just so far ahead of its time because people didn't start kind of doing this sort of thing until recently, and it really really helps. I mean, you say positive things about yourself like that as affirmations, man, it really helps. It's just such a positive thing, and you don't have to do it like in front of the mirror if you don't want to. You don't
Yeah.
have to do it. You don't have to do it like, to where people can hear you, but like, just do it to yourself, and man, it's really really helpful. I find.
Well, maybe I'll try affirmations next. My wife always gets on me about saying mean things about her husband, so so yeah.
That's a big one, man. That's a big one, and like, oh man, so we'll have to go into a longer conversation because you say woo woo stuff, and I can tell you for maybe even next time, I don't know, why I think the way I think now because I've been an atheist my entire adult life up until just a few years ago, and I'm not like a Christian. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not. There's no like religious doctrine that I adhere to, but I'm definitely not an atheist anymore. And I don't think that that's anti-scientific, and I don't think that it's woo really
Hmm.
because I came at it from a very, very scientific approach that we can discuss another time. And after that, that's when I relaxed and said, you know what, I'm not going to even try to figure it out anymore because nobody can figure it out. Nobody can figure out this thing that I'm looking at, that I'm showing you, that I'm in my eyes is proof of something other than the material, and nobody can explain it. Nobody can say exactly what it is. Therefore, why am I trying? I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to roll with it. And
Sure.
that's when I started saying, okay, yeah, the universe is bringing it to me,
Yeah.
and just accepting that and feeling good about it and turn things around for me in a big way.
Well, enough of this feeling good about things. How about communique from the Manosphere?
What do we got? What do we got? We kind of briefly went over what we might want to talk about, but is there you have any kind of preference?
No, I think there's been this little CNN video that you sent me and that my wife had seen where this woman only dated far right men for a year. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
So I only watched the little clip once. It was a CNN interview, and yeah, she was writing an article for the
I
Atlantic.
thought it was Cosmopolitan, but
Yeah, it was.
I
Yes,
could be wrong.
no, it was Cosmopolitan, and she had said something along the lines that it was really hard sometimes dating these guys. And really, the thing that stuck out for me of the entire thing, it was a pretty brief clip on YouTube, was that at one point, one of her dates took her to like a political event, and it was just a bunch of dudes there, and she's like, quote unquote, political event because all they did was
Hmm.
talk about their wives and their girlfriends and complain about women. And
Yeah.
she said, like, you don't need a political movement or something along the lines. She's like, you need therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I remember, the kind of the tagline for it was just that they're so insecure, which just when we talked about the Lady Doth last time, that was the whole point of that. It's like
Yeah.
if you're so concerned about your masculinity, the only thing that really tells me is that you really aren't comfortable in who you are and
Right.
what you are. You're not comfortable that you're a man. You're
Hmm.
not comfortable that you're masculine because you know what? I can do anything I want. I could dress up like a woman and I'd still be confident that I was a man because I know that. Like I can definitely watch screens and not feel like I'm a woman and like yeah, so it's that insecurity. And you know what I thought they needed is as affirmations.
Yeah.
Bring
Well,
it back.
that would stop them from complaining. And if those guys would stop and just listen to the negative, like you were saying, your wife gets angry
Yeah.
when you trash her husband. If those guys would just stop, if everyone would just stop and listen to the negative voice, the self-critical voice in their head, they would catch it more often. That was what happened to me. I would catch, oh, like, oh, hey, I'm talking negatively about myself again, and you stop doing it. And once you catch it almost every single time, and you're like, oh yeah, stop with that.
Mhm.
Or you kind of catch yourself spiraling down like a negative rabbit hole, whereas before you might just like embrace it, and you're arguing in your head, and you're blaming people, and you're airing these grievances to no one but yourself. And I think if these guys could think that way, there would be no manosphere, a negative manosphere anyway.
Or we'd get super confident assholes. That's the
Or that, or
which is the other dangerous edge
they'd
of the
say,
manosphere, I think.
you know what, I'm great, I'm
Yeah,
great.
I'm great. Women really are the problem. No, it's yeah, I think that's the other side of the manosphere that we see sometimes is whether they're acting or not, the super confident a-holes. But yeah, I think it was an interesting piece. It was an interesting piece getting kind of a corroborated point of view about like these guys are just really, and when I always come back to this thing of competence because, you were saying she went to this political event and it was just guys complaining about women.
Yeah.
It's like, you just don't know how to be a boyfriend. You're just not an attractive person
Or
the way that you are.
or you just don't know how to manage relationships, really. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what it
exactly.
boils down to. Or if it's not going the way you want it to, you just don't know how to respond to that exactly. Did you read the article, by the way? I didn't read it.
No, I didn't read the article.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me till just now. Like I might actually check it out. The only negative thing about it was, at least in the interview, was obviously that's not going to go over well with far right dudes. I saw a ton when I found it. I saw tons of like retorts to it. You know what I mean? People
Mm,
were
of
responding to
course.
it like, yeah, and I didn't read them because I'm like, I know which side I'm on, and I don't want to hear all the negative like negativity. But I mean, there is a case to be made that it was just a sensational sort of thing to do. But I don't know. Like, do we need to be sensitive towards this sort of like stupidity just so that they don't
No,
get mad and they listen? I don't know.
yeah, I don't think we do need to be sensitive towards it because it's kind of like that being intolerant to intolerance
Yeah.
argument that we can hit at some point. But I do think that it's important to get some of this stuff out in front of
Mhm.
people that might not be aware of just how batshit crazy the manosphere is. People really are genuinely so caught up in their own bubbles that they just don't know how nutso some things get. They just
Uh-huh.
kind of refuse to believe it. So I think seeing the inside of these things, the inside of these worlds, especially from the point of view of somebody that's injecting themselves into it, like a woman that's going to these situations. I think there's some value in it.
No, there's definitely value in it. I guess I don't know how to word it exactly, but it's more of, I don't know, I guess if you come off as insulting, which is what it is. I mean, and she's perfectly right to do that because that they
Hmm.
are that's her conclusion. She's like, oh yeah, they're insecure guys. There's no way they're going to listen to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In fact, they'll just respond defensively as they have done. I think the benefit is, as you were saying, it'll get out there more and more people will hear it. But the negative is like, well, these guys are just going to dig in their heels and they're not going to
sure.
change. It's not going to get any better. And in fact, it's another example for them anyway of a woman tricking them. Like, oh, she wasn't interested
Sure.
in dating them. She was just using them to advance her career or to like make fun of them or whatever. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah,
again,
yeah.
I want to be clear. I am not on the side of these guys. I'm just pointing out like they're never going to listen to it. It's never going to be effective for that group, which I think is a group that I'd like to reach. I mean, in some small way at least.
Thinking back to the piece, I didn't feel like, I mean, I don't think there's any way of talking about that experience without getting at some hard truths. And I like if she thought they were very insecure or if they were talking about women problems instead of politics at these things, there's no way to do that, to say
Mhm.
that honestly
Right.
without saying it, right? And I'm sure that in private she could be much more visceral than she was in that interview. If it's an unflattering light for these guys, it's a reflection of what's actually going on, and there's no way to pretty that up and not make it untrue.
Right.
And that's kind of where I came down on it.
Yeah.
And she must have been pretty damn patient with these guys, dating people for like a year in this community. She must have had to bite her tongue a lot or something, or get in a lot of fights. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm gonna have to look up that article actually because I'm curious. I'm curious how it went and how that her conclusions were rather than this little bit on CNN that we watched.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to a book report next time. All right. I think it's time to fall in love.
Let's fall in love. I went first last time because I had to adjust the question, so I'm just going to come at you with mine.
Okay.
Skip, before making a telephone call, do you ever rehearse what you're going to say and why?
Carlos, only monsters make telephone calls. In this day and age. Yeah, so when I do have to make a phone call, because if I have to make a phone call, it's one of two situations. I'm either calling my wife, in which I don't rehearse, because I just want to say something real quick and it's easier than texting. Or I'm calling a restaurant or a city office and I'm doing it in Czech. So in those cases, I always rehearse in my head
Right.
because I
Yeah.
need to practice Czech and kind of go through. Okay, these are the words that might come up. This is the vocabulary. Here's things I'm likely to hear. So I'm just kind of prepared to not sound like a drunken asshole calling up that doesn't know anything and sounding like an idiot. So not with phone calls. I guess the closest analogy is like difficult conversations, and I will tend to kind of go through like dress rehearsals of a difficult conversation like a dozen times in a dozen different ways, and I don't know, just kind of like feel it out so that I'm not caught off guard, or I don't like lose coherence of what we're trying to get at in a conversation with somebody, or just keep my mind in things and figure out how to communicate my message in the best possible way, and try and think about how the other person might respond, and just kind of be present for what I'm actually there for and not let it turn into some kind of spiraling problem. But yeah, I do tend to rehearse conversations that are more serious sometimes.
That's pretty much exactly how I am as well. Of course, I'm not speaking in a foreign language when I make phone calls, but like you, I'll speak to very few people on the phone. Other than that, I'm just texting. But I think maybe when I was younger, I guess maybe somewhat more insecure, I might have done that. Definitely with more serious phone calls. But yeah, I don't think I ever really rehearsed a phone call unless it was a serious thing that I had to get right.
No, I guess the other analogy to it would be sending a text that you write and then you delete and then you write and then you delete and you're just trying to find the right words or
Right.
whatever. Like when you're flirting with somebody, like when I send you texts and geez, I just want them to think I'm clever and funny, and then I end up just sending like a GIF of somebody because I can't be bothered.
Let's do
Yeah.
one more. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. That was an easy one.
What would constitute a perfect day for you?
Ooh, well, it would definitely start with sleeping in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't miss a ton about not living in America. Like there's a lot of lovely things about America, but the day-to-day life, there's not a lot of things that are different that I just yearn for. But starting with an American breakfast, like at an American diner, because they don't really have those in the Czech Republic. They've got brunch places and stuff, but it's always for me a little foofy. Like, instead of just like pancakes and eggs and bacon, you get like buckwheat pancakes with berries and a drizzle, and then there's a thing with sprouts on the side and stuff like that. So just like, good old fashioned like Denny's fare, something like that. And just kind of chilling out with really a couple hours of relaxation and meeting up with some friends or my wife and kids later and getting some sunshine, doing something out in nature. Those sound really lovely to me. Have a couple drinks outdoors, and when it gets late, I mean, if there's a fireplace around or a campfire, that's really lovely. But if those aren't available, getting some popcorn and watching a movie or something like that, playing a game where we like the crazy board games here. Just kind of quiet family time, I think, or
Yeah.
friend time. How about you?
See, for me, I guess I'd be the opposite. I'd get up very early. I get up very early, and I'm much more of a morning person than I am anything else. I'd like some quiet time to myself, maybe with a cup of coffee and a book or reading the news or something. Just kind of slowly coming into my skin in quiet. I like that. Getting some breakfast, maybe taking a walk if it was a big city like Prague or some other place where I can go, or I can go buy a coffee or something. That'd be great. Sit down in a cafe somewhere. Work on my computer with whether it's writing or whatever. I think at some point in this day, I'm gonna like just be all over the map here because This is all an exercise in fantasy anyway. At
Yeah.
some point during the day, I would be in Prague at a cafe, and then I would be on the hillside in Austin at Barton Creek pool. It's a
Mm.
naturally
The green
contained.
belt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, naturally contained spring, very deep. There's fish in it, and there's a diving board, and there's it's on a really hot day. You jump in, it's really cold water, and then you get out, let the sun dry you off, and you start to sweat a little bit. And you jump back in, and repeat. Yeah, one of those. I don't know, maybe a good restaurant dinner. I'm not much of a drinker these days, so I probably would leave that out. Maybe a glass of red wine or something. Cabernet Sauvignon, it's my wine if I'm going to have one.
All right.
Beer at this point will just make me feel like a balloon, so I just can't really do it. Well, I guess just no responsibility. That would be a
Yeah.
perfect day for me. Just no
Isn't that?
responsibility. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. Just a day without
Yeah.
responsibility. I'll just be staring at a wall as long as I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned you don't drink beer because you feel like a balloon. I, man, I like beer, but I can only have like one, and then I got to drink a bunch of water. Otherwise, or even other alcohol too, but especially with beer because it's so drinkable. I'm just up. I'm up all night. Or if
No
I fall
kidding.
asleep, I wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah, and I've had a couple friends that are like this too. So yeah, I don't drink much anymore. But if I do, we have a nice scotch. We have gin for gin and tonics, and I'll do like one, maybe two. But then it's like, all right, now I got to drink a couple liters of water to drown it out. Otherwise, yeah, it's a mess. But yeah, when you were talking about walking around the city, that's when we go on vacation, which is maybe those are my perfect days. Is going somewhere I've never been before. And when our family does that, instead of we don't do a lot of tours, we don't do a lot of like activities or anything. We just tend to walk. We tend to walk around the city, and I like to do what I call holistic tourism, which is a takeoff on Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency from Douglas Adams,
Uh-huh.
where he's a detective and he does holistic detectiving and he just kind of picks somebody random out and follows them. So that's kind of what I do when I go other places. I like to not read about anything that's there for the first day and just kind of go where the flow of people's going. And I tend to find that if I do that, and then there's like a top 10 list of things to see, I'll look at that at the end of my first day there and I'll have seen 7 or 8 of them
Oh,
just
nice.
from kind of walking around the city. And because I didn't expect it, I got to discover these things. And it's just like such a cool thing to come around a corner, not knowing that there's going to be some monument or something and find it and kind of be in awe as opposed to like hunting it down with the map and it just works out really nicely. And my wife has sort of followed suit, and we just walk the kids to death and get get food and drinks and keep walking. Yeah, those are lovely days for us.
You reminded me with the walking around and seeing the sights like that. Jody and I used to, and I say used to because we haven't really had a vacation in forever because we have animals that nobody wants to take care of because they're
Yes.
big animals. But anyway, we used to like I remember we visited we were in Venice for a few days
Mm.
and to Jody's credit, she forced me. I didn't want to do it. She's like, let's go running because we were doing half marathons and just 10Ks here and there all the time. And I didn't want to do it, but she like dragged me out of bed. It was like 5 a.m. Sun was up. And the day before, if you've ever been to any tourist city in Europe, it's always shoulder to shoulder with tourists. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
see anything because there's so many people. And the day before, it had been just that. It's just people everywhere. But anyway, we were up at 5 in the morning, something like that, and we ran all over the city. And it was empty,
Yeah.
completely empty, and just such a beautiful city, such a cool time. It's like the place is yours. Same thing in Prague. If you get up and go
Hmm.
running, you can run across Charles Bridge. Well, you can do it in the middle of the night too, but you go running across Charles Bridge in the morning, and there's nobody there. But you go there
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the middle of the day, it's just like it's packed. There's so many people.
Mhm.
But yeah, I recommend that to anyone touring a city. Just get up in the morning, and if you can, have a little run.
Yeah, and here's my pro tip for anybody that's touring through Europe or probably anywhere, but mostly Europe for sure, is if you find yourself on one of those busy main drags, you go one street over. That's it. You literally go one street over. It's quiet, it's cool. There's just a handful of people and you'll find some street that's running parallel to these main drags and it's beautiful. It's really lovely to just get away from that street for a minute or two. You'll find a lot of peace of mind and you'll get better views and a better experience of the place that way. So yeah, you can do the main track, but then also get off of it.
Well, case in point, when I was a lad, I ended up in Seattle, and I don't know why I didn't go to the Space Needle. I think it was maybe too expensive. I can't remember exactly why I didn't take the elevator up or whatever, because there used to be a restaurant, or there is. I don't know if there still is one, but that's kind of the destination. And rather than going up the Space Needle, somebody had told me, oh, go to this building next to it, and you can pay $5, go to the very top of it, and then you can actually see not just the city, but you can see the Space Needle. So I got a really cool panoramic picture of all of Seattle with the Space Needle from like 75 stories up or something, however tall it was. So it was really
Yeah,
neat.
yeah.
You know, I didn't go up to like the major tourist spot, but I got to see like, you know, the skyline as it's seen famously. You know, it's pretty neat.
Pretty cool.
Why don't we move on to some personal questions, Skip?
Sounds lovely.
I am very interested, and you can do either one of them. I added a third one because you inspired me with yours, but I would like to
Okay.
know one or all, if you want, about a pivotal moment, a transitional moment, whether it was like an epiphany or a decision or a mistake that you made that shaped who you are right now. Like you wouldn't be the same person if you hadn't
Yeah.
experienced this thing. You mentioned before that you were a weird kid, whether that was on mic or off mic, and I wonder
Yeah.
what made you weird in high school or even younger. And then the last one is, and I'm going to ask you these at some point, whether you answer all of them or not, because I do
Yeah.
want to know. Why did you walk across the U.S. and like was it across the U.S. like from coast to coast, or and how long did it take you? I want to know some deets on that.
Yeah. So, I would be happy to answer all of these, but I think that would be way too much time for today. So let me answer the one that came up the most recently, which is why I was a weird kid, I guess. So, high school. I'm speaking specifically in high school, but entering high school, I was a big kid, real big kid, very round, and I had long, fading purple hair, and I'd sit quietly hunkered over in a desk. Yeah, and then I found wrestling my freshman year of high school, and I lost 50 pounds and I grew 6 inches.
Uh-huh.
So completely transformed who I was.
Yeah.
Um, and and it allowed me to get a little bit out of my shell. And that's where I remained for the rest of high school, which is when I was real weird. But but yeah, I remember people coming up to me by the end of the year and being like, "Man, I thought you were just this giant scary guy." Like people probably thought I was going to be the Columbine guys, but I wasn't. I was just a sad fat kid. And we had just moved there, and so I didn't know anybody, and you're very self-conscious, especially as a big kid.
Where is there?
So we moved from in junior high. I was in Chico, California, which is a lovely place. Has it has Bidwell Park, which is lovely and sort of similar in a very much smaller time field than the Green Belt in Austin. So there's some similarities to our childhood there. But we moved to a small. We kept moving. We moved from the Bay Area when I was a little kid to like smaller, more northern mountainous towns as we went. So we moved into Grass Valley, which is a small town. A lot of people know it in California anyway. But yeah, so some little town in the mountains. So I was going to high school and I got through my first year, came back the next year and I was still in wrestling, still, my weight fluctuated, but I was never kind of, I know that there's beautiful at all sizes and things like that, but I've never felt comfortable when I'm bigger. Like I don't feel comfortable now. I've got some extra weight on me, and it feels like I'm wearing a suit that I don't want to wear. So I was much more alive when I was, once I had lost my weight, and I really came out of my shell, and my shell was. Turns out that inside my shell was very weird. Um, so I was, I had my ADHD. I drew. I didn't go to class. I think at one point I had like 50% attendance. And I never got, luckily, we didn't have the zero tolerance policy on that stuff. Otherwise, I never would have made it out of high school. But I'd get good grades because I was smart enough that I could show up for like the review day and stuff. I wouldn't exactly cut. I'd be like, well, I'm going to work on a project somewhere else. And they'd give me a slip and I'd go to, Denny's. And we'd, dress up in weird clothes and like clown hair and wrestling singlets and capes and roller skates, and we didn't have anything else to do. It was a small town, so we'd just dress stupid and go out and do things. Or I'd end up, I was in drama for a little while, not doing a play, but like in a drama class, because some people tried to push me into that. And at one point, I was carrying a toilet across the school, and it was just, like people just got used to seeing me doing weird things. I ran for class president at one point, and I'd make posters that were just inane, like and it was sort of a spoof of the whole class election system anyway, because nobody says anything of substance. It's just like, vote for me, it's a populator. So
Yeah.
I was doing completely inane things because it really didn't matter. So I'd say, like, vote for me, I can say monkey in 23 languages, which was true. Because I was just collecting ways to say monkey. Or I'd like put my footprint on it on a big piece of paper and circle it and be like, vote for me for class president, this is my foot. Things like that. So yeah, I was just kind of an odd duck. There was guys on the wrestling team that I've never done drugs, but they knew that I didn't smoke pot, and they were like, "Oh, I knew you didn't smoke pot, but I thought you were always on acid." I was just a weird guy. I'd come up with like these long, rambling 20-minute psychedelic speeches for speech class where like butterflies were tiptoeing around and, kids were shooting into the air and things like that. So, yeah, I was just a weird guy, and I was always friends with a lot of queer, lesbian, bisexual people, and a lot more women than men. I just always got along better with women, or I guess girls at the time, because it was high school. So, big macho football guys didn't understand that whole thing. None of that made sense to them. These small town football players.
Yeah, as you were describing that too, I was reminded how you said that those, the football players would call you gay or whatever in the hallway.
Yeah.
And you kind of took it as wishful thinking. I just occurred to me that I wonder, because at the time homosexuality wasn't like obscure. I mean, there was tons of openly gay people, but it was still not as accepted or remotely as accepted as it is now.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they thought of it in the classical term of queer being like odd. You know what I mean? And they look at you doing something nonconformist, and they're like, "That's gay." You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Hmm.
Because gay is not normal, and therefore you're a fag, or you're
Yeah.
queer
Yeah.
or whatever. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I feel like that's kind of what it is. Is they're kind of substituting the word, or they're substituting gay for just not being normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was definitely an element of that. But there was also some people that, like, they wouldn't like classically bully or anything, because I was actually, I was in a weird kind of popular where I wasn't like popular, like I wasn't a football player or a big jock or anything, but like everybody, our school was 3,200 people, and like everybody would know who I was, and I could kind of go from group to group and get along with people. Um, but like I never got like bullied. There was a couple guys that were just pretty firm on that one thing, and after a while you get a feeling like, oh man, this is really sad. Like you really just are. I feel like you're reaching out, but I'm not going to reach back because you're an asshole.
Yeah, there's definitely a too far. I mean, it's all too far, but there's definitely
Yeah.
when it goes beyond sort of like a normal slur, and it goes into something psychological, like, oh, this person's got an issue. And yeah, like you said, I'm not going to reach out though, because you're a dickwad.
Yeah, yeah. But I really enjoyed high school. And, for however little I went. But yeah, it was a very fun, carefree time. It was probably the most carefree I've been. Now I'm going a little further, but I had heard when I was younger that I was going to die by the time I was 18. So I was just kind of going. I had really bad immune system. I was sick a lot growing up. So every time I got sick, I was like, this might be it. And I was just kind of living full bore. And then I got out of high school, and oh man, shit really hit the fan. Like that was reality, and suddenly I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life.
Yeah.
And it was still fun, but there was, more of a serious responsibility edge to it as well. So not quite as weird.
Well, you had to grow up, I suppose.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I did still streak 600 people in roller skates and a cape at one point, but
No way. Really?
yeah,
Wow,
A
that's
story for another time. Another
oh,
story for another time.
I can't wait to hear it. That's I was gonna say fact of the podcast was that you skipped 50% of your classes, and now I'm like, no. Skip streaking with a cape and roller skates is the fact of the podcast that I. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm eager to
and
hear
my
that
wife
story.
was there. So it's time that I get to ask you something. So I had several questions that I was going to give you some options of. So one was you said that you had this kind of dream of farming in it, and then you didn't really like. So I wanted to know what was so bad about it. What was that experience like, and like the turn from being excited about it to I need to stop doing this, or what's the best, worst, and weirdest jobs you've ever had? Or why hitchhike across the U.S.? Because that's definitely one, and I would like to get to all these eventually as well.
All right. Well, I have something to say about every one of those actually, but I'll take the last one first, or only for today, because I feel like that's the most formative thing for me. And you were talking about your youth, so I'll go the same route. So I didn't actually make it through high school. I dropped out when I was about 17. I kind of stopped going at about 16, and I couldn't officially quit school without a parent's permission until I was 17. So I just wasn't around, and then my whole junior year, I just wasn't there. So I was working by the time I was 20, I got my GED when I was 22, and then I started university. Or I say university, I'm very Canadian now. I started going to school right after. But all the time before then, I was just working, and I found myself. I was working overnight at Walmart, 1999. I was 19, and I remember like on one of our breaks, we were outside smoking cigarettes, me and a bunch of guys, and we were all kind of like sharing drug stories and like like reminiscing how we did mushrooms and smoked weed and all this stuff, and like laughing and fondly remembering these times. And it occurred to me right then, like, oh man, all like five of us dropped out of high school. We're all working overnight at Walmart. Not that that's like a terrible thing. Whatever, people are making ends meet and doing what they can, but it was just the all those guys working there with the exact same story left an impression on me. But anyway, so I met a guy my age who worked there as well overnight, and one night we were hanging out outside of work, and he had told me he was driving his truck and I was in the passenger seat. I don't know where we were going, but he said, "I'm thinking of walking to Colorado." And that just like hung in the air. There was just I was just processing what he had said,
Yeah.
and that statement. I don't know if I don't even know that I've told him. We're still friends on Facebook. I haven't talked to him in years, but that statement just opened my mind like I don't know that anything else has, because
Mm.
never in my life had something like that occurred to me. I'm like, I said, you're gonna walk to Colorado, and it wasn't even like a
You
why.
guys were in Austin, yeah?
Yeah, we were in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah, very late '90s, almost. Yeah, it was 1999, I think. And he had said that he was going to walk there, and I didn't even have to ask him why. Like as soon as he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
and I said, I want to come, and he's like, yes. He's like, I was like, that's why I said it. I was hoping we want to go. So we had started planning for that, and I think within 6 months, no, less than 6 months, we had taken off. But we initially were going to walk to Colorado, and if we felt like hitchhiking, we would do it. And I have kind of I wouldn't say domineering personality, but I definitely have a persistent and opinionated one. And I feel like I kind of took control of his little trip, and I feel bad. It's like to this day, I'm like, yeah. I wonder. I mean, whatever. He's happy with his life, but like I kind of took control of the trip, and we ended up just hitchhiking like right away, or after a few days anyway. And by the time we got to Colorado, I think we'd spent a week together. We got to Colorado, and we had kind of been bickering a little bit here and there. And he told me that he was going to go east to his brother's house. His brother lived in Colorado, and basically saying like, I'm ending the trip. I'm out of here. Not in an ugly way, like we weren't mad at each other or anything, but he just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
He got to Colorado, not quite the way he wanted to, but and I was like, I couldn't wait for him to go, because I was like, I don't need you. I can do this myself. Like I can't. Like I don't want to ask permission. I don't want to agree on where we're
Yeah.
going. I just want to do what I want now. And so when he left,
Training wheels are off.
training was rough. Yeah, I needed
Yeah.
him to plant the seed in my head, and I needed him to like walk me out. And then
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
that, I took off. And yeah, I went all over the U.S. I went up into Canada. I would sleep outside in the dirt. Like I was in rainstorms. I was in sandstorms. I was in snowstorms. I had a backpack the size of my house that weighed probably as much. I spent about 9 months out. I spent quite a bit of time in Vancouver. Very, very formative there as well in Vancouver, Canada. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of trimming the details, but it was a formative experience for me. And hitchhiking was exhilarating, and I was never afraid. Never, not once was I ever afraid. I had some questionable characters pick me up. I had some potentially dangerous situations, but I was a strong kid, physically strong, and I felt perfectly able, whether it was bravado or what, perfectly able to defend
Mm.
myself. I had a very large hunting knife, very visible, strapped to my leg. So people picked me up, could see it. I mean, they knew what they were getting themselves into. And I had another hunting knife strapped to my backpack that I could easily just like pull out of the sheath and be ready to go if someone messed with me. Of course, I didn't want to stab anybody. If I had to defend myself, like that
Yeah.
was the way to do it. But yeah, man, it was like a really, really exhilarating experience. It was exhausting. It was like nothing else. This is not pre-internet, but pre like email. I didn't even have an email address. I didn't know what an email address was. There were no smartphones. I started
Yeah.
wearing a watch. I had like a Timex watch and that I just kept in my pocket or my backpack or whatever. It was the most free I've ever been. Yeah, the most carefree I've ever been. It was a great experience. And I said last recording that maybe it was the first time in my life I was happy was when I was now. That's not true because when I came back to Texas, everyone commented like, "You're a completely different person." I
Yeah.
think it was 9 months or so when I came back, and I was light, and I was happy. I was super happy, and that came crashing down a few years later. That we'll eventually talk about, I'm sure. And it took me years and years, decades to recover from that. But yeah, for a moment, for a flash, I was
Yeah.
super super happy, and I enrolled at college, and then from there, I had to take placement testing and all that stuff because I dropped out of high school. But from there, I was accepted to the University of Texas. I ended up going to Texas State University, which is definitely a step down. But things went up from there. I don't know how soon. I was always going to do something different. There was no way I was going to be working at Walmart for years and years and years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was that night with my buddy. His name is Craig. When he said he was going to do that, completely changed everything for me.
That sounds great, and I can't wait to hear more about, like, you talked about some of these things being formative. I want to hear more about those in future podcasts. But yeah, I definitely identify. We've both been lucky enough to have these kind of long trips of, I don't know how else to describe long trips of freedom where you're just able to do what you're able to do that day. And I came out very much in a similar place. I think right after I stopped my walk across the US, I had like that. Sometimes there's a come down after some big achievement or some big thing where you get a little depressed, but I recovered from that pretty quickly. But
Mhm.
yeah, just genuinely happier, more carefree, more confident. Like, I came out so much better of a person, certainly better person than I've ever been at any other time in my life, including now. Like, I was genuinely happy, and what you were saying was really resonating with that experience, which I sometimes forget about, which is too bad.
And it's funny because I've only met one other guy. He's a Canadian guy that I've lost touch with, unfortunately. But he was doing the exact same thing. We met in Vancouver. He was coming from the east. I was coming from the south, and we just like intersected in Vancouver. And he was hitchhiking. We were like counterparts with each other. It was really neat.
Yeah.
And you are the only other person that I'm aware of, I think, that did anything like that. And that's obviously jillions of people have done that, but I mean like that I knew.
Sure.
And I think that's another very interesting commonality, considering our birthdays are like a day apart, and like yeah, so
Hmm.
many different little things. But real quickly, I wanted to kind of tie this back to the Manosphere because as we were discussing this thing, like walking across the U.S. and hitchhiking across the U.S. is very much a fearlessly doing that. I'm assuming you did it fearless. To do that, you have to be pretty fearless. The thought of like any danger really never crossed my mind, and wasn't only until I was put in a situation where there was a man who was he wasn't even dangerous. He was just so sexually suggestive, and it had never. I was 20 years old. It had never happened to me before. That I was scared. I was like, oh my god, like this. What if this guy like goes nuts and like I'm in his
Hmm.
car, my backpack's in the back. I can't. Like I'm. So I said there was no fear. There was no fear. Getting into someone's car was never. I was never afraid to do it.
Yeah.
But in this one situation, might have been the only time that I was actually like fearful, and I had no reason to be. It was just some dude looking to hook up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he picked up a hitchhiker and hoping it'd probably be like a. He was probably closeted. I don't even know. But anyway, in that moment, I thought about my sisters. I thought about my mother, and I thought about how often that happens to them. You know what I mean? And how often that probably still happens to them, where they're in a situation where a
Yeah.
man, and this guy wasn't even coming on like he wasn't even scary. I was just like it was just like such a new experience for me that it scared me. But this guy wasn't even scary. I can only imagine all the times that women that I know and love like have been intimidated by guys that are sexually suggestive to them. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that was kind of a moment for me where I realized, oh yeah, I'm a man navigating quote unquote man's world where I don't have to worry about like didn't even occur to me that I could be
Right.
harmed while I was hitchhiking of all things. You know what I mean?
Right. No, it's a great realization to have, and it's a great realization to bring back to, how we make women feel when we're around. Like if we live in an apartment building. If I always am trying to be very conscious. Like if I ride an elevator up with a woman that I don't know, just being very non-intimidating,
Yeah, yeah.
so that like people can just go about their day without being scared because there is do you remember last year? I think it was last year there was the big thing about asking women if they'd rather be stuck in the woods alone with a bear or a man, and it was a big thing, and a lot of men didn't understand when women were choosing bears. Bears don't want you. I've been alone with a lot of bears in the woods, and it can be a little scary, but men, especially in the middle of nowhere where there's nobody to help, there's nobody to oversee things, there's no civilization to impress rules upon them. Like we as men have to realize like that can be a terrifying thing. It shouldn't be, but it is. Like that's just the world that we live in. We need to remember that.
It's not even just being terrifying to women, but it kind of recognizing that there's a caution that a lot of us don't have. You know what I mean? Like there,
Mm,
like I think just being in an elevator with a guy isn't necessarily a scary thing or a terrifying thing. Of course, it can be, but the fact that that thought might cross their mind, like that this guy could be dangerous, it just rarely happens. Rarely happens to me when I'm alone with another man that I don't know. You know what I mean? Rarely, rarely. I can probably
yeah.
count on a few fingers, like how many times that's happened to me. But I'm sure that's a countless thought at the very least, even if it's not a terrifying one, just a thought that women have had. Okay, Skip. So let's round this up with what's bringing you joy this week.
What is bringing me joy? I mean, right now, as I look out the window here, it's the weather, and I'm just really looking forward to getting off of this podcast and going outside and enjoying some of the day. Not that I haven't been enjoying this, but yeah, just getting outside, breathing some fresh air. That's probably the thing that's bringing me the most joy right now. How about you?
Well, you've added a third now to my joy, and I'm so happy you chose this as a topic because, dude, I've been stressed. This is reminding me like, oh no, there's some joyful things here. Three things. I'll be very brief. I won't go on and on about it. But one, the weather. Yeah, same. It's past couple of days have been absolutely beautiful here. The other thing is I started reading. I'm about almost 70% through with The Little Prince. At your
Oh,
recommendation,
wonderful.
thoroughly enjoying it. I wasn't expecting. I was expecting it like more of a kid's book, but it's really not.
Yeah,
I mean, it
it
is.
really isn't.
It can be, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's very adult, and I hadn't expected it to be like commentary on humanity, which is what it is. So I'm really enjoying that. And the last thing was, and this is going to date the podcast, unfortunately, but we had elections here in Canada, and it's the first
I was
time.
gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, this is my first time I voted. I voted provincially, so, but this is the first time I voted federally for prime minister in another country. So it's pretty cool. I'm a citizen now, and I have that right, and it's pretty neat. I enjoyed it.
Congratulations. Yeah, I got to vote for the first time here a couple months ago. And yeah, there's a civic pride. There's like a real civic pride to doing that. So yeah, I'm there with you. That's wonderful. And I'm really glad that you're enjoying The Little Prince. I'm gonna say something that, to some men might be embarrassing now, but there's an animated movie of The Little Prince,
Okay.
and it's one of my favorite movies. The Little Prince itself isn't long enough to be a full length movie, so they've altered it so that the story of the Little Prince is a story within this other story. And what they do with it, every time I start watching it, I start crying. Like immediately. It's just like beautiful. I can almost cry just thinking about it. Like whenever I see something, I don't cry when things are sad. I don't tend to. But when things are really beautiful or feel strike me as really true, yeah, I start to tear up. So I start to tear up during movies I love, and like the whole way through this movie I'm just like trying not to cry. So yeah, it's on Netflix US. I just pulled it up. Oh no, it's unavailable due to our ad supported plan. But if you don't have an ad supported plan, I guess you could watch it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out because I'm
Yeah.
enjoying the book. I really, really like the relationship he has with his rose, his flower.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a sweet. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but like, yeah, it's a very it's a romantic relationship almost, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's really sweet. I'm thoroughly enjoying the book.
Yeah. That brings me joy. That's my new joyous part of this week is knowing that you're reading that and enjoying it. Yeah, it's I mean it's what my son's named after something in that book. So
I know now, but unless that character is back in the story later on, I may have already been past that spot. But I didn't realize that's who you were naming him after.
yeah, yeah. So now you have a little bit more insight. My son's named after the Little Prince and a Scotch is his middle
I knew
name.
the Scotch. I knew the Scotch. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. A new podcast every week. If any part of this show has resonated with you, let us know at outsidethemanosphere@gmail.com. And please like, subscribe to the podcast, or recommend us to a friend. We hope you'll come back. Thanks again.
Thanks.